Thomas Edison, the great laborer. Not everyone is born with exceptional intelligence. Some people start far behind others at the starting line, yet through unwavering will and a relentless desire to rise, they create extraordinary things. Thomas Edison is a vivid example of that immense potential. As a child, Edison was labeled confused and slow by his school, and after only 3 months of attendance, the school refused to let him continue. But fortunately, Edison had a wonderful mother, which he received the rejection letter. Instead of telling him the truth, she gently said the school was not suitable, and that she would teach him at home from then on. Having been a teacher with extensive experience, she patiently educated him and constantly encouraged him to become a genius. Her support became the driving force that fueled Edison's later efforts. His learning journey was quite simple. He studied under his mother's guidance and was mostly self-taught through books. Once he learned to read, Edison read tirelessly. The first book that truly captivated him was The Study of Experimental and Natural Philosophy, which sparked his love for chemistry. Fascinated by what he learned, Edison spent all his pocket money on chemicals and set up a small laboratory in the family's wine cellar. As his passion grew, his pocket money was no longer enough to sustain his experiments. At the age of 12, Edison asked his parents for permission to sell newspapers to earn more money for tools and chemicals. Initially, they hesitated because he was still too young, but moved by his determination, they eventually agreed. His first job was selling newspapers on the Grand Trunk Railway from Port Huron to Detroit. During his free time outside of sales, he conducted experiments in a small laboratory he had set up in the baggage car. Despite his young age, Edison was described as quick-witted, sharp, and the best-selling newsboy thanks to these early real-life experiences. He gradually gained knowledge in business and communication. Not only did he sell newspapers, but he also created and published his own paper called the Grand Trunk Herald, the first newspaper to be published on a moving train, and it was well received. With the income from his business, Edison was able to continue nurturing his passion for scientific experiments. However, the turning point in his life did not come from the lab, but from a simple act of kindness. One day, while working at Mount Clemens Station, Edison saw a little girl crawling on the tracks as a train approached. Without hesitation, he rushed to pull her away. Just in time, both of them were unharmed. The girl's father, a telegraph operator, was deeply grateful and decided to repay Edison by teaching him telegraphy, a highly respected profession at the time. Edison learned quickly and soon became a skilled telegraph operator. This marked his official entry into the field of communication, which laid the foundation for his future breakthroughs in electricity engineering and technology. Instead of focusing on a single invention, Edison chose to create a global system. To this day, many people still mistakenly believe that Thomas Edison invented the light bulb, but that is not the case. Before Edison, many scientists had worked to bring artificial light to humans, starting with Alessandro Volta's invention of the voltaic pile to Humphrey Davy's arc lamp, and later experiments with copper and platinum filaments by James Bowman Lindsay and Warren de la Rue. All were significant steps toward the discovery of light. However, these earlier inventions had major limitations, such as overly intense brightness, excessive energy consumption, high costs, and usability confined to laboratories. Indeed, Edison's journey did not begin from scratch. He had the chance to build on unfinished efforts, but what made him remembered as the inventor of the light bulb was his ability to transform it into a complete product suitable for real-world use. Edison tirelessly experimented with thousands of materials to create a longer-lasting, more affordable, safer, and mass-producible incandescent light bulb that anyone could use. With a grand vision and a desire to bring light to every home, Edison built the first power plant, founded an electric company, and designed electric meters to measure consumption, creating an entire energy distribution network. Through the relentless efforts of a large team led by Edison, he laid the foundation for a whole new industry where light became an essential part of daily life and production. Thomas Edison, a man with an extraordinary systems mindset. The world has never lacked brilliant inventors, but very few have managed to take their inventions beyond the laboratory and turn them into powerful industries. And once again, Thomas Edison achieved this feat. What set Edison apart was not only his inventions, but also his vision. He had the ability to see the connection between scientific creativity, everyday life, and societal needs, then committed himself to the laborious process of creating finished products. While many inventors focused solely on creating something new, Edison prioritized making inventions practical and applicable to life. For example, with the invention of the incandescent light bulb, Edison did not just focus On brightness or durability, he thought far ahead to commercialization. And to maximize the light bulb's utility, he did not see it as a standalone product, but built an entire synchronized infrastructure including wiring meters, power plants, technical standards, and even initiated training for a strong workforce to Edison. No matter how great an invention, it would be meaningless if it could not be applied in real life. To bring his vision to reality, he did not hesitate to collaborate with engineers, businessmen, lawyers, or even the government, anyone who could help him build a sustainable system. This practical mindset and ability to connect ideas and people helped Edison break free. From the mold of a typical inventor, he became a builder, someone who not only conceived ideas, but also knew how to assemble the necessary pieces to bring them to life and allow them to grow. The great achievements of an inventor throughout his life. Edison was granted over 1093 patents in the United States and hundreds more in Europe, totaling around 1,500 inventions. Remarkably, most of them were commercialized and integrated into everyday life, including the light bulb, phonograph, motion picture camera, carbon microphone, vacuum tube lamp, and electric meter. Edison also introduced a completely new approach to science. He was a pioneer in establishing the Industrial Research Laboratory model where scientists, engineers, and technicians collaborated to turn ideas into mass-producible products. This model became the foundation for the R&D systems that modern tech companies still use today. In 1880, Edison founded the Edison Electric Light Company and operated the world's first power plant. Over time, the company evolved into Edison General Electric, the predecessor of General Electric, GE, one of the largest industrial corporations in the world. It is clear that Edison's value did not lie in a single invention, but in his ability to improve, connect, apply, and build an industrial network where science was not separated from the market and technology always advanced alongside daily life. The practical applications of Edison's inventions give people every reason to praise him, because what he created did not remain in theory, but was always applied to real life. The invention of the incandescent light bulb allowed humans to light up the night without relying on fire or candles, ushering in a new era for nighttime living and production, marking a major turning point in how people lived and worked each day. The power systems and power plants Edison built provided electricity to thousands of households, laying the foundation for a modern energy-driven society. The phonograph, the first device capable of recording and playing back sound, opened the door to the music industry, voice archiving, and commercial broadcasting. The kinetoscope allowed people to view moving images for the first time, laying the first brick for the birth of cinema. Even the telegraph system, which Edison improved, increased transmission speeds from dozens to thousands of words per minute, a major breakthrough that ushered communications into a new era. And that was just one of many advances he helped bring about. Edison brought not only light, but also sound, motion, and speed. He pulled the world out of the darkness of the pre-modern era with his relentless creative mindset and unwavering belief that science must serve humanity. Talent and flaws, no one is great without weaknesses, and Edison was no exception. As seen in the War of Currents, the dark side of his ambition and competitiveness sometimes overshadowed his sense of fairness in an effort to protect the direct current system. Edison took actions that were ruthless and remain controversial to this day. There is no excuse for his mistakes, however, if we can temporarily set those errors aside and focus on his creative drive, his spirit of contribution, and the immense influence he left behind. We will see that Edison was not just a man with faults, but a symbol of willpower and tireless dedication to creating something useful for humanity. Edison was one of the great entrepreneurs, deeply admired and forever appreciated by Henry Ford, because it was Edison who first encouraged Ford to pursue the idea of developing the gas-powered automobile at a time when that concept was still new and met with skepticism. Henry Ford, founder of the Ford Motor Company and a pioneer in applying the assembly line to car manufacturing, credited Edison with helping turn the automobile from a luxury item into a common means of transportation that transformed modern industry and life. Ford recounted this story in a book he wrote about Edison during a meeting with engineers. When Ford presented the working principle of his vehicle, Edison, although hard of hearing, listened attentively. After hearing the presentation, he slammed his hand on the table and excitedly said, "Young man, you have it, keep at it." That brief statement carried tremendous weight for a young Henry Ford, who at the time still doubted himself. If Edison had been selfish, he might have said nothing, but instead, he publicly acknowledged someone else's effort, and that timely support, though small, became a turning point in one man's life. From that first meeting, Edison and Ford stayed in contact and gradually became close friends, supporting each other in both work and life. Later, Henry Ford wrote the book Edison as I Know Him as a tribute to the man who inspired and profoundly influenced his life. He hoped that through this book, future generations would understand Edison, not only as an inventor of great achievements, but also as a respected, dedicated individual who deeply impacted his era. According to Ford's accounts, Edison was relentless in experimentation, possessed sharp practical thinking, and especially knew how to manage his own finances to sustain his invention, something few could do. He was not only a creative mind, but also a man of action, who understood the value of money and always knew how to turn ideas into products that could survive in the real world. In his personal life, Edison lived simply, without seeking luxury. He devoted most of his time to work and considered labor the highest form of living. He was also someone who cared about politics and was unafraid to express his opinions directly, even if that sometimes made him unpopular. But Edison hardly cared and always stood by his beliefs. One of the most admirable things about Edison was his tireless work ethic. He could work for tens of hours straight, sleep at his desk, and resume as if he had never felt tired. His colleagues said he worked as if the concept of time did not exist, only goals and absolute focus. Although not a gentle leader, Edison deeply respected talent. His laboratory functioned more like a creative ecosystem than a hierarchical organization. Everyone had the right to try, fail, fix, and try again, as long as they were serious and truly dedicated. Edison never saw himself as the center of the universe and was willing to collaborate with experts in different fields to complement his work. Though occasionally hot-tempered, he still acknowledged others' achievements as long as they were valuable. Few people know that behind the stern and passionate figure at work, Edison was also a rather romantic husband. He once taught his wife a system of symbols so they could communicate in private, using their own code. A small detail, but enough to reveal a very human, gentle, and warm Edison behind the image of a grumpy genius. The lasting legacy of Thomas Edison. Today, the achievements of Thomas Edison are preserved and honored at the Thomas Edison National Historical Park, located in West Orange, New Jersey, one of the most important sites in the United States for preserving the history of science. Thousands of artifacts, drawings, devices, and prototypes remain intact, vividly reflecting his tireless dedication to a lifelong journey of innovation. Henry Ford also dedicated a section of Greenfield Village to reconstruct Edison's laboratory as a tribute to the man who profoundly inspired his own creative and entrepreneurial path. Another notable detail is that Nikola Tesla, the brilliant yet eccentric genius who once opposed Edison in the War of Currents, also acknowledged his talent in bringing inventions to life. Despite many disagreements on the direction of their work, Tesla still regarded Edison as a man of unwavering determination, willing to experiment hundreds of times to pursue a single idea to the end. And perhaps it was this steadfast spirit that made Edison a quintessential symbol of American industrial strength, respected not only by his supporters, but even by his rivals. Conclusion: Thomas Edison was certainly not a perfect genius. He made mistakes, sparked controversy, and was not always easy to work with. But if we look at the brighter aspects of who he was, we will see that he was a quintessential example of an inventor who lived fully with his passion for labor, constantly experimented, and persistently brought science closer to everyday life without chasing distant dreams. Edison, with his practical mindset and discipline, laid the foundation for an entire new industrial era where light, sound, images, and energy became indispensable parts of the modern world. Perhaps what truly makes him admirable is not the number of patents he held, but his spirit of commitment and refusal to surrender to adversity. Despite suffering from hearing problems since childhood and facing difficulties with calculations, Edison remained optimistic and kept moving forward. He continued inventing to improve quality of life and help shape a more progressive society. Edison was not perfect, but the legacy he left behind is undeniable, and he truly deserves full recognition from society.